Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'm taking a look at Goryo by Andrea Candiani, published by Gate On Games, which is a two-player game for ages 10 and up, which plays in about half an hour. This is a hidden movement and deduction game that is a lot of fun. Before I explain the rules and share my thoughts, I'd like to ask you to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, and please also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. If you become a Patreon of my channel, you can support starting from €1 or more. You get your name in the credits, early access to all of my videos, access to Patreon exclusive content, and you save up for the exclusive Board Game Heaven enamel pin. And with that out of the way, let's set up a game and explain the rules. To set up a game of Goryo, put the game board in the middle of the table within view of both players. And then you put tiles on these 4 rooms according to the setup right here on the Goryo board. This is a smaller representation of the palace here, and it will tell you where all the symbols belong. So following this, you take all of these tiles and place them on the board. So once you've done that, the board will look like this, and these outer corners with the furniture are not spots that you can actually use on the board. And all of these tiles will have their objects shown like this. The other side will have the object with a seal on it, and that side is not shown yet, so you keep those on the bottom there. And then there will also be 8 tokens with all of the 8 different objects, and you just place those on these spots here in the garden. It doesn't really matter where you put them as long as all the objects are there. So there's 1 tile for each object, and again these will have a broken side on the other side, but you start by placing them with the intact side up. There are also round tokens for all of the 8 objects here. And again, they will have 1 intact side and 1 sealed side, just like the ones on the board. And you put all of these round tokens into the Goryo bag. So there you go, and give that a shuffle. And then you also play these broken tokens on these stones here. There's 4 of those, and 1 is for the Goryo player for the start of the game. Choose who will be the Goryo player and who will be the samurai player. And the samurai player will take these 4 colored samurai meeples, and they will put them in the middle of each room like so, and it doesn't matter which color is in which room. Give the Goryo board to the Goryo player, as well as the Goryo meeple and the 5th broken token. The Goryo player takes the Goryo board. Behind their Goryo privacy screen, they take the felt tip pen, they take the transparent movement cubes, the purple target cube, the false trail green cube, and the gray leap cube. Make sure your board is oriented in the same way as the game board, and keep all of this behind the screen. Then the Goryo player secretly draws 1 of the object tiles from the bag without showing it to the other player, and secretly looks at it, and this is the potted plant. So you keep that behind your screen, and you put this Goryo token on it. Now this item will be your bound item. More on that in a bit. The samurai player has the samurai board, the red and the green clue tokens, the spirit tokens, and the action indicator cubes. Place 1 of these green trackers on the start position on your samurai board here, and this will be moving along this track as you play the game. And you put these 3 spirit tokens face down on these spots. So this is spot 1 right here, this is spot number 2, and this is spot 3. And finally, the Goryo player picks a 2nd token from the object bag, and reveals it this time. So the second object here is the urn or the vase, and then they pick one of those corresponding items in one of the 4 rooms of their choice, and they break it. So let's just say we're gonna take that one right here. So that gets broken. So you reveal this one. You place a broken token on this one. So this is the 5th one, indicating that this object is broken. And if you want, you can break an object that is occupied by a samurai. So had I drawn this mortar and pestle, for example, I could have broken that one by simply placing that token on that tile. You also put your Goryo token on that tile, indicating that this is now your starting spot, and you also flip over the corresponding item here in the garden to its broken side. The drawn token is then not used anymore, it's discarded. You don't put it back into the bag, you just put it back in the box. That's the setup of the game. Let's explain the rules. Now, the object of the game for the Goryo player is to break 5 objects. Now, the first object was already broken during the setup right there, which is the vase there, the green jade urn. So you can already cross that one off on the Goryo board right here. So any broken object simply gets crossed off. Plus, you can always see which ones were broken with these tiles. So the game is basically played in 4 rounds. And if after that 4th round, the Goryo player will have broken 4 objects, 4 more objects in addition to this first one, of course, and hasn't been caught by the samurai, then the Goryo player wins the game. But the samurai player wins if they manage to stop the Goryo from breaking objects, which can happen in one of 4 different ways. Firstly, the Goryo player loses if they can't place a target cube, which is the purple one, anywhere. So basically they aren't able to get to a new object and break it. If the Goryo player accidentally breaks their bound object, which is the potted plant here, they also lose the game and the samurai player wins. Samurai player can also win by flipping over all 3 of these spirit tokens on their board. So if they manage to flip all 3 of these over, they win the game. And the samurai player also wins when all the object tiles on the board here have been flipped to the light side, either broken or protected, before the Goryo player manages to break 4 more. So there's 4 states these artifacts can be in. They can either be intact and untouched, like at the start of the game. They can be broken, as indicated by this tile, and also with one of these white broken tokens that you put on the tile. And the Goryo player crosses broken items off with an X on their board. An object can also be sealed, which means this is flipped over with this seal symbol on it, this little paper seal. That means that those objects can no longer be broken by the Goryo player, and that player will circle those with a circle around that object, all of the similar ones as well, indicating that that type of object can no longer be broken. And lastly, there is the bound object, which again is this one and kept secret. So that also means you cannot mark that object on your map here, because you will be showing this board to the samurai player after every round, so don't give that away. Now, a round begins with the Goryo's turn. The Goryo player will plan a route starting from their starting position, which is here, and they can move up to 4 cubes, but one of the cubes is their starting position right here. So you can already place one there on your board. And then they will plan their route through a room. They can also cross the bridges to other rooms. The bridge itself is not a spot of movement. So if you go this way, 1, 2, 3, this is simply the 3rd spot there. And then the purple cube is their targeted object that they are going to break. So that could be, it's always orthogonal. Could be this one, not this one, because that's the bound one, or this one. depending on where I'm going, of course. Now, I don't have to make a straight line to somewhere. I can also go around. So if I want to stay in the same room, I could do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, well, not this plan, but I could break this one. So you just plan your route by placing all of these cubes, and it has to be legal, always orthogonal, and you have to end your meeple later on the object that you break with the purple cube. Now there's also 2 extra cubes here, so we have the false trail and the jump cube. You must always place all of your movement cubes and your target cube, so you can't leave ones out and make a shorter path. There can also only be 1 cube per space, so you can't group them together or place a target on an already visited cube or on your path. And you can also not double back the way you came. And like I mentioned, you can't place your target cube on a tile that has a bound, sealed, or broken object already. It is allowed to pass through samurai. So keep those movement rules in mind, because if you cannot move anywhere and have no legal spots to end your turn, then you lose the game. Now the leap cube, the gray one, is basically an extra movement, but you can only use it once in one turn, and then afterwards it is removed from the game. So it's a one-time use to make your path longer. So I could do this and then move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces instead of 4. But then after that turn, this is removed and no longer able to be used. So that can be handy if you need to reach a spot that you couldn't reach. So be very careful using that. And then the false trail can also be used on any space on the Goryo board that's not occupied by another cube. And it doesn't follow the normal movement cube's placement rules. Now the samurai player will be investigating your route and trying to figure out where the Goryo spirit is headed, and I'll explain how that works in a bit using the samurai board. But if during a round the samurai player investigates a space that has the green false trail on it, you have to announce that that is indeed part of your trail. You don't announce that it is the false trail, of course. You simply say, yes, that is part of my path. And when that happens, afterwards, at the end of the round, that cube is also removed permanently from the game. If that spot was not investigated by the samurai player, you simply get it back. And you can use both powers on the same turn if you wish. After the Goryo player has planned their route, they can announce that they are ready, and then it's time for the samurai's turn. So the samurai will have this board with these tokens still flipped over to the beige, the brown side there. They have their first investigation cube on the start track, and they have green and red investigation cubes and these black action cubes. And the samurai turn will use their actions to guess which object the Goryo is going to break next. And on their turn, they can activate up to 3 samurai out of the 4 that they have. And they are color-coded, so the 4 samurai on the board will be these 4 colors. And each samurai has 4 actions they can take. 2 of those actions are movement, which means if you put an action marker, let's say on the red movement right here, that means I can move my red samurai 1 spot in any orthogonal direction from where it is. And since there's 2 of those, you can take that action a maximum of 2 times per samurai, so they could possibly move 2 steps like that. The magnifying glass means that you will investigate the tile that samurai is currently occupying. And the hound icon here means that they investigate a tile that is 1 spot orthogonally adjacent from where the samurai is standing. Each samurai can take a maximum of 3 actions, so you can't do all 4. There's a maximum of 3, so they can do 2 movement and then investigate. And the samurai player has to complete all the actions of 1 samurai before resolving the next one. So if I also had the green player investigate and maybe do the hound action, and then I wanted the blue samurai to move, I do them one at a time. So for this example, let's bring in the Goryo board right here, which is of course still hidden normally. And as you remember, we planned this route here. So the Goryo is going to walk here, 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 and then break this object. So let's say that this red samurai did indeed move 2 spots to that room with these 2 movement actions, and then investigated the tile they are on. Then use the green samurai to investigate the tile they're on and 1 tile adjacent, so maybe this tile, and well, we already know this, so probably we might want to do this tile over here. And then lastly, we want the blue samurai to move that way. So how does that work? Well, you simply start with 1 samurai and you ask the Goryo player when you're investigating if that is part of their route. So we walked 2 steps with the red samurai and we investigate this tile. Is that a part of your route? Yes, says the Goryo player, because it is right here already marked. So then they will take a green clue token and put it there, indicating that that is indeed a place where the Goryo will pass. So then the green samurai next will investigate the tile they're on. That is also a part of the path. So they will put this token here. And then they investigate with the hound action a tile adjacent to where they are. And the Goryo player says, no, I am not going there. So they place a red token there. And then finally, the blue samurai simply moves 1 spot. Maybe they want to move here. And that's that. Now the samurai player doesn't have to use all 6 of their action tokens. They may choose to use less actions should they want to. And you also don't need to use all 3 out of 4 samurai. You can also just use 2 of them, or even just 1 if you want to. Now, of course, the samurai player cannot investigate the same spot twice on the same turn, nor can you investigate the Goryo's starting tile. You can, however, investigate a tile with an object that was already broken because the Goryo could possibly just pass through there. But after all of that was done, the Goryo player reveals their board, but only their board. Keep all the other things, you know, the secret item, the bound object, and whatever you have behind the screen. So you can only see the route you took and which object the Goryo player is going to break. Now, should the Goryo player have made any mistakes in revealing the answers of the samurai's investigation, then for every mistake, the samurai player gets to flip over 1 of these Goryo tokens. So you don't want that to happen, so be very careful at what you're revealing. Of course, you have to tell the truth. And again, if the Goryo player by accident breaks their bound object, they immediately lose the game. So then the samurai player takes all of their clue tokens, places them back in their reserve, and you take all of your clue tokens back. So the red ones you return, and for every green token that you get to take back from the board, you advance this token 1 spot. So that was 2 of them, so I move this one 2 spots. Now this spot, as you can see, has a bag icon on it. So whenever I get to a bag icon, and it also means when I flip over 1 of these spirit tiles, these also have the bag icon on it. If I flip that over, or if I enter 1 of these spots, I get to draw another token from the bag. So the samurai player then just randomly takes 1 token and reveals that object. It is possible to flip over a token and reach a bag on the track, or even multiple in 1 turn, and then you simply draw as many tokens as you've unlocked bags. So when that happens, in this case, it's the helmet. The helmet is now sealed. So that means you flip over the helmet tile here to the broken side, but you place this sealed helmet on it, indicating that this is now sealed. And all the tokens that are still on the board are also flipped over to their sealed side. So that is an object that the Goryo player can no longer break, which also means that the Goryo player takes their marker and marks all of those objects with a circle to remember that those cannot be broken anymore. You can't pass through them. At any point, they can still move through them. They just cannot break them with the purple cube. So if at any moment all the object tiles on the game board, except for one, are flipped to the light side, so they're either broken or sealed, except one, then the samurai player will have found out by exclusion the bound object, so the object that the Goryo is bound to, which again is the potted plant in this case. And that means they can banish the Goryo from the palace and they will win the game. So we've revealed this path, so the Goryo player ends up on this object right here and manages to break it. So we take the first broken token here and we put that on the board, and then the Goryo player can take all of their cubes back and also mark this one as broken. And again, in a later turn, they can still move through that space. They just can't end on it because they can't break it a second time. Now, if a samurai were present at the spot where the Goryo ends and breaks an object, then the samurai player gets to flip over one of the spirit tokens on their board. And like I said before, that also means they can draw another artifact from the bag. And should there be multiple samurai on that space, that also means you can flip over as many tokens and draw as many tokens from the bag. So then the Goryo player has broken this mortar and pestle. We can flip this one over to the broken side as well. And that's the end of one round. So you get all of your tokens back. Same for the Goryo player. Places their board behind their privacy screen once again and starts planning their next move. So their first spot would be here because that's one day where they ended. And now they can once again start planning their move. Maybe they want to stay in the same room, or maybe they want to go to the next room. Who knows? And this might be dangerous because there is a samurai there. So if that one doesn't move, that means a spirit token will be flipped. So there's a lot of thinking to do here and a lot of careful planning your movement as the Goryo player, and of course lots of deduction going on by the samurai player. So if the game lasts for all 4 rounds and the Goryo player manages to break 4 more objects in addition to the one they started with, and the samurai player has not managed to either banish the Goryo player by flipping over all 3 of these tokens, or deduced which item is their bound item, and the Goryo player hasn't accidentally broken their bound object, or the Goryo player hasn't gotten blocked during any of their turns, then the Goryo player wins. And in any of those other conditions that I mentioned, the samurai player wins. And those are all the rules. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Goryo by Gate on Games, who I would like to thank for donating a copy for me to review. Let's start with the components. The components are very good. You get your dry erase board for the Goryo player, which works very well. It's small enough to be hidden behind your screen, which is also really nice and double-sided. This is the side that the samurai player sees, and here the kitty that with big eyes sees all these treasures and wants to just knock them off the table and break them like cats do. It's also quite funny. And it's big enough that you can clearly see all the artifacts and mark them with your dry erase marker. You've got the cubes that work well for the placement and for the planning, and they look pretty as well because they're all like these transparent cubes that you see a lot in games. So all of that is nice. I love the embroidered bag here with the Goryo logo on it for all the artifact tokens that you draw. You get these lovely little samurai and Goryo meeples as well. Just very cute, and they're nice and chunky, so they stand out on the board. The color coding is clear also on the samurai board here with the wheel. The icons are clear. All of that just works really well. You got those tokens for banishing the Goryo, and yeah, all of that just, it's very intuitive really. Once you know the rules, everything makes sense. And I like that you have these broken tokens to indicate that something was broken in that spot, and all of these tiles to indicate whether something is still intact, broken, or sealed. And that makes the game very easy to see what's going on, to remember what's been done already. Yeah, so the components are very well done. The board itself is also really nice. Illustrations, artwork is also really good. The box itself looks really nice to begin with, but you know, all the art on all the boards and all the tiles and the tokens and here the screen, all of that looks really good. And it's also very thematic. I do like the theme of this game. It's only a 2-player game, of course, but 1 player plays the samurai trying to defend the palace and to keep the artifacts from being broken. And the Goryo player just wants revenge on the lord of the palace and tries to break 5 things. And you already start with 1, so you basically just need 4 turns to break something, and then you win, but it's not that easy. So I like that theme between 2 very different parties with their own goals going at each other in this hidden movement deduction game. And the gameplay is just really fun. For both players, it's a lot of fun. The Goryo player needs to really plan their movement and where they're gonna go and what artifact they're gonna break. Being careful not to, of course, break their bound artifact that is randomly drawn from the bag at the start of the turn. You keep that a secret. And then you just need to plan around and make sure you don't get stuck, because you can't break an object that's either sealed or already broken. So those that are marked off, you can pass through those spaces, but you can't stop there. So you need to end your space, and you have to use all your movement. You can't stop short. So you have the cube where you start, and then you have 3 movement, and the final movement is where you break it with the purple cube. And that requires some careful planning. And you can, of course, throw the guards off with the false trail, or use the leap once. That'll get you an extra movement. And they're going to be closing in on you, and they're going to investigate spaces and put those tokens down. And if they guess correctly where you planned your route and where you are, even, because if they are at your space, you even get to flip over one of these tokens. And that's just really cool. The whole deduction, thinking ahead, the planning on the Goryo side, and they're trying to figure out what's going on the samurai side. And then every time you get something correctly, this time tracker advances and you get more tokens from the bag. So that's great as well, because the more tokens you have, the more artifacts you can seal. And these will be flipped over, and at some point there will be only 1 artifact left over, and that is then, of course, the bound object, because the Goryo hasn't broken that one. They can't. And it's the only one left over, so by deduction you win that way. And I feel like the games are always very, very tight. It is actually pretty hard for the Goryo player to win this game, I feel. After a couple of plays, I found that playing as the Goryo player, you really need to be very careful, and you need to try and break similar objects, right? So if you broke a vase in this room, try and get the vase in the other rooms as well. You probably won't make it in all 4, but that is ideal, because then you give nothing away and you don't give any extra clues away, because if you break something else, then the samurai player knows that that is not the bound artifact. So try to, minimize the amount of objects you break. Just do them in all the different rooms, and you just need 4 more. So it sounds easy, but the samurai will quickly close in on where you are and on your path and get more points and get more tokens from the bag. So it's a very quick game. It's just maximum of 4 turns. And the Goryo player always starts with the planning, and then the samurai gets to react. And it's just a lot of fun. I think this is a very accessible and very fun hidden movement deduction game for 2 players that a lot of people, I think, will enjoy. The replayability is good. Now, I thought at first that all of these tiles would be randomized in the rooms, but they're not, because the Goryo board is, of course, pre-printed. And let me actually check the back of it. Is that different? No, it is exactly the same, yeah. So it is double-sided, but it's exactly the same. And I do feel that's a bit of a missed opportunity, because I think had they printed both sides with a different layout, you would have had at least 2 different layouts and 2 different ways to play the game. But maybe that doesn't really matter that much. I don't know. But if everything has a fixed spot, then why use tokens to indicate where everything is? Why have a blank board, you know? I feel like they wanted to randomize it at first, but then didn't. Because they could have just printed all of these artifacts on the board, just like they are on the Goryo board, and then just use tokens with a seal. Just seal tokens that you put on top of those to indicate that they're sealed instead of flipping these over. So that's a bit of a weird design choice, and I think they could have probably had some more replayability, or at least more randomization, had they done something else with these tokens. But that probably wouldn't have worked with the Goryo board, unless, like I said, they printed it differently on both sides and maybe include another one. Then you'd have 4 different ways to set it up. I don't know. But anyway, replayability is all right. You are technically playing the same game over and over, but you're making different decisions. It's just like any other old school game where you're just playing the same game. You know, games we used to play like Clue or which is always the same game, but you know, it plays out differently. And this is what this is as well. It's just you're doing the same thing, but you can play as the Goryo or the Samurai, and you can use different strategies. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think replayability is all right for what it is. And then finally, the language dependency. The game is completely language independent. You do get the rule book, of course, in this was in English and I believe in Italian. Forgive me if I got that wrong, but I think so. And that's the copy that I picked up. But once you know the rules, the whole game is language independent, because you only have all of these tiles and these tokens and whatnot. So it plays pretty intuitively once you know the rules. So all in all, very enjoyable game. I think it scores well on all the points that I mentioned. And I can certainly recommend giving this a try if you like hidden movement and deduction games. So that is Goryo by Gate On Games. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And please also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. And you can support my channel if you'd like, starting from just €1 per month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.